episode definitely threw me by surprise where they went back to Gun Gale Online, I think it was.
Yeah, they had an anime original scene where they're teaming up and they're fighting, and they have like they show these people are like they're like scheming at the top of a hill, and they're like, "Oh yeah, what are we gonna do about them, boss?" Kind of thing.
Right.
And that's not in the books at all. So I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, no, I thought that was kind of weird because Red Eye Zaza kind of comes after, like, when he puts the hood on. I was like, are you dead? Like, or like arrested, one of those two, because I remember I sent you a screenshot. I was like, hey, is Red Eye Zaza like back in this?
Oh yeah, just for the beginning though.
uh,
What the anime didn't show though was that he does get arrested after he kills Kirito, but they'd never like mention it again in the anime, so it's kind of like a one and done thing.
I see. And I think after that, or it may have been before one of those two, we kind of cut back to like Kirito and the other two new characters kind of like being children messing around and trying to find a sword.
Yeah. So a lot of people were kind of confused because the initial like key art and stuff that was being released after the anime got announced was Kirito, Yujiro, and Alice being little kids. So people were like, okay, well, is this his backstory? Is this Kirito's backstory? Is this a new game? What the hell is this? And it turns out it's a simulation where he's like working part-time for Wrath, and he gets thrown into this machine called a soul translator where it scans his soul and puts him in like this fantasy, like basically The Sims.
Yeah, a simulation of life. Yeah, I can kind of, yeah, I feel that. But what you call it? I thought that was a really good introduction because not only does it, come. I'll save that for later part. But I thought it was a good introduction because, for one, this takes place. I want to say I'm 100% right after the movie.
Yes.
Oh,
Because
okay.
Asuna's wearing the ring that she gets at the end.
All right, I'm so good. I'm so glad I got that right because funny story. I actually went to go see Ordinal Scale, and a friend of mine. I was like, hey, we should go see this movie. So I don't want to because of SAO. I was like, got anything else to do? She said no, and I was like, fine, we're gonna go see this movie then. And we ended up having a blast, and I'm glad I did watch it, especially after the credit scene, to know that this was taking place afterwards. So, and then after, does the opening play in the first? I think that plays in the second episode, if I'm correct.
It plays at the end of the first episode.
Oh, okay. They do one of those like hype moment shits.
Right.
But other than that, they kind of just explain and experience like Kirito's new job, and then like Asuna has this weird heart rating system on him, like a tracker.
But people are the thing I didn't like about the way they handled that. Well, they didn't handle it bad. People just perceived it wrong. Like they think Asuna's the one who put that in there, but it was actually Wrath who told Asuna, put this, like, we're gonna put this in Kirito so you can monitor his heart to make sure that he's fine. And she's like, okay, that's fine because I don't know what the hell he's doing for work, so this works for me.
From the way I interpret it, I don't think it's a bad idea, but it felt like a subplot for like her episodes in particularly. Like I felt like when they mentioned it the first time, like I feel like that should have been focused a lot more than be like, okay, now that's gonna be a big deal for her episodes, but like anything else. But like, yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad idea. I just felt like that's kind of like her main focus and like lead up is like his heart monitor thing. But
Like disappearing connection.
And then afterwards we get to Kirito. Am I saying her name right? Isn't it Asuna?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I keep on thinking Asta. I'm like, I hope I'm not saying those two wrong. But yeah, then we get to Kirito and Asuna in like this weird back alley, and then the thug, who I think did he work for Red Eye Zaza, or was he like a totally different group?
No, he worked with them.
Oh, okay.
He was the one who got away. At the very end of season 2, they were like, this guy is still missing, but we'll find him eventually. That's him.
Right. So then I believe he has like the death gun or like or something similar to it. Yeah, and then he shoots Kirito with it, and then weirdly enough, Kirito stabs him with a fucking umbrella on his leg, and he passes. Like, that scene is fucking ridiculous. Like, so to like kind of touch upon that, I just want to say whoever did the Japanese voice for him, phenomenal. Like I felt intimidated like when the thug head came out. Like I was like, oh, this dude's like some weird punk. And then like when he like the way that his like tone shifts and he starts laughing, I was like, oh shit, like he's about to like pull out a switchblade or something. So I think that was handled very well. And then Kirito gets hit by the death gun, and then we come back to like kind of the Sims. I'm not, what do they call the setting for that world?
under.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, and then they kind of based on it. Like I love that I love that fairy tale story with like, oh, like there's a story where I forget what they call the god there. There's like, oh, they take your world to our world, and he's like kind of play with you in a sense. Like as like a like sort of gag thing, like they do this like little cartoony like flash thing. I was like, oh, that's pretty cute. And then Kirito kind of they get involved with cutting down the demon tree and everything. And I think that covers the first episode, if I'm right.
Yeah, it just basically like lays the ground for where Kirito goes and what he does and why he's there. A lot of people didn't like it because it's classic SAO where they're sitting for a long time and just talking and nothing's happening.
Yeah, I don't.
But I will say it's a lot better in anime form because these in the books are like 30 to 50 pages of exposition. Where it's like cut down to like 15 minutes of talking. It's like, thank God.
Also, I don't think a lot of people know what the fuck setup. They don't know what setup episodes or setup chapters are. Like,
right, because it's not like typical SAO seasons where it's 20 episodes. It's 50 this time. So like they're really taking their time. And this new director is like, he kind of really understands like how to pace something as long as this arc.
Yeah, because that really bothered me with a lot of reviews, like early like episode reviews on the series. It was like, oh my god, they were like, we've been on this tree forever. It's just like, it's only been 2 episodes. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I think the part where they get to like the cave and the goblin is episode 3, because I know 4 and 5 like takes place, with Asuna and everything. I was just like, are you guys really that impatient that you have to just bash on it from the jump?
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like nothing's ever gonna happen. It's just at this point in his writing, Kawahara, the author of SAO, kind of like finally understood, I need to take my fucking time to explain everything and like lay the groundwork so that when stuff like when shit hits the fan, it's like fucking amazing.
Yeah, because like I think people really get this interpretation wrong. Like SAO isn't it's not a shonen series. Like I'd rather have a series flesh out like the world building and the characters than do the fight scenes last, like if anything, because it gives you a better understanding of the characters, especially like the newer episodes where like I'm not going to spoil because Kay hasn't seen it yet, but it definitely not influence, I'm using the wrong wording, but it definitely shows you how much they've grown as like characters when Kirito and who's the blonde-haired dude's name again? I forget.
Yujiro? Yeah,
when they want to become swordsmen, and it'd be like, oh, it's been about like 2 years, and you see them grow as characters and their personality shifts and changes. I'd rather have that much more than the fight scenes, because you can just watch that on a YouTube video. Like, I don't want to watch an anime for its fight scenes. I want to watch it for the whole character development and the experience going through each and every episode.
Right, and like these beginning episodes, they are kind of slow, like I will admit. Like when I was reading them, because I've read the entire Alicization arc. Like I'm waiting for the next arc to start up next month.
Right.
Reading them felt really sluggish and slow in the beginning, but when things started to pick up, like things just went like hyper fast, and like stuff was just happening all the time. It was really hard to keep up with because like so much was happening. Like I kind of missed the whole build up part of it. But there was nothing like left to build up. It was just, we've built up our thing, now it's time to just execute it and go.
Right, and I feel that with Alicization, I feel that I hate to say this, but I like it better when they talk more. Like, I just enjoyed like the regular ass conversations because like this is like SEO's 3rd or 4th season. It's just like, okay, like I get fight scenes are cool, you want to see the Sakuga moments and everything, but I'm more watching this for the characters and like where Kirito goes next. Where does him being trapped in this world go like after this? Like I want to focus more on like this whole world, the setting and everything. And that's why I had a problem with these big YouTubers. They're like, oh, when is it gonna get good, interesting? Like I feel like what they honestly wanted to say is like, oh, when are we gonna get the next battle scene? Where if you are saying that, this ain't the show for you. Like it's got really good moments, but like you're gonna get let down more than brought up if that's your only focus.
Right, and this is the arc that basically like compiles all of the themes and like everything that's happened to Kirito previous. So now he's thinking, well, I want to go to America. I want to learn more about this technology that I've been living, and I want to understand it more, but I can't do it here. They're more advanced overseas, and that's where I want to go. And now that he's trapped here, he's learning more about AI people and NPCs and like how deep virtual reality can get, and it kind of blurs the line for him, because to him, wherever he's at is his reality. So whether he's in virtual reality or in real life, whatever is happening is actually like happening to him, and it's real.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see his character go from what people think is a bland protagonist actually develop like his own interest and desires, that he wants to care more about this kind of setting.
Right, and
People still call him like the bland harem protagonist, which I think is really wrong at this point, because now he has his own goals and his own dreams, and you know he wants Asuna to move. Like he doesn't care about anyone else, but as long as she's with him, like he's fine.
Right, and for me watching the series, I think it was after the first episode, and like later on in, you know, further episodes of, you know, beyond the first one, but he was going about it at the mindset. He was like, okay, this is a video game, like I know I can get this type of experience, pain won't hurt this much. But then like during the Goblin Cave and like afterwards, he's like, okay, I have to take this as this is a real life situation. Like the food is real, the pain is real. Like he's taking it more as he was in, you know, Gun Gale or like any other situation. This is at now he's from like the ground up, like at zero, like kind of like Subaru from ReZero. Like he's from the start, like he has no level 100. He's not a beta tester. He's just taking everything as he goes along, or as, you know, obstacles comes his way, which I thought was really interesting in how they kind of went about it.
Yeah, you make a really good point about that too, because he really has no idea what's going on anymore. Cause like, yeah, he's done it before, but they wipe his memories. So when he finally like is actually realizing, oh shit, where am I? Like, what's going on? Is this like the simulation, or like was I isekai'd? What's going on?
Right. Because I'm sorry to cut you off. I was going to say during the Goblin episode, he was like, okay, I can take these guys on, no problem. He was like, oh fuck, like this kind of hurts more than normal. Like he realized like, okay, this ain't a game. Like this is like my real full-on body being like tested now.
And he's like starting from the ground up. He has no knowledge of anything. He can't just switch over his avatar and be super OP like he did in Gun Gale. Like there is nothing he can rely on except like his own perception. Like what information he's taking in is all he's gonna get, and that's all he can rely on.
Yeah, and I think before, because there's one new episode out at the time of this video. He's kind of like interpreted like, if I want to become powerful and stronger, I just have to think it. And like even with that like mindset, because he like straight up like he knows this is like a game. He knows that this isn't reality, but it feels like it. So like he's stuck between two mindsets. It was like, I'm taking this seriously, but I'm also trying to interpret it like my own way, that I know it's also a video game. So
right, it's like, okay, I know these people aren't really real, but they're real enough that I'm going to treat them like real people.
Right, and I find that very interesting, where it's like you're battling between two mindsets, between what's real and what's not real, like fake and reality, which I think not only is it interesting for Kirito, but for us as viewers, because we interpret it as like, oh, these characters aren't real, but they're real enough for him to take it so seriously.
Right, like to us, obviously we know they're not real people, so like whatever happens to them doesn't really matter in the long run.
Yeah.
But to Kirito, if someone dies in this world, that's literally like a death in real life, and that's how serious he's gonna be.
Right. I know for like most viewers, it's like, oh, that's how the series has been the entire time. It's just like, yeah, but this one, he's not level 100 from the jump. Also, he's set from 0.
Right.
So yeah,
and it's more interesting now, because in previous seasons, we didn't really get Kirito like taking things in one step at a time and like, okay, this is how this works. So what if I use it here? Will it work here? No, he just kind of like does stuff and it works. In Gun Gale, in Aincrad, he already knew how everything worked in Aincrad. But now he's like, okay, well now I need to like slow myself down. Is this how this works? Okay, if that's how it works here, what about here? Oh shit, that doesn't work here. And he just like kind of does a lot of trial and error in Alicization that makes it a lot interesting. And in the anime, they finally implement his monologues and his thought process, which gives him more character than he did in the previous seasons, which makes it a lot more interesting to watch him.
Yeah, and like I can't even fault, like, because I feel like with people, when it comes to SAO, they not only do they take the opinions of YouTubers, but they take the first and second season and think that that's how the entire show will go throughout. Like, this is recorded, podcast wise for the, people do change, series do, come about and go in different ways. And I do think that this is if not the best representation of Kirito and probably like SAO as a series, because not only seeing the movie was really good, but you get a lot of his, like you said, monologues, his thought process, and more of him as a character than you did, when he was at level 1. And honestly, I think that's a great, reversal of going about it. Season 1, he's all powered up, and then, as seasons go on, he goes down, level 99 to 80 to 0. And I think that's a great way of going about it. You go up, instead of going, you go flat surface to up, you instead go to the top, the bottom of 100 to now down to 0. Like, you see the scale going down instead of upwards when it comes to this anime. Like, okay, you've seen him at his best, now you're going to see Kirito at his worst. Like, I think that's
right, and now he has to actually try. Because when he first saw Yujio's sword, he was like, look at this thing, I can fucking use this and I'm gonna cut the tree down myself, because that's just how things have worked for me in the past.
Right.
And then it doesn't, and so he has to figure out a way, okay, well now how are we gonna use this sword?
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of going about this season, and this kind of the series of SEO as a whole. Because, like, I mean, eventually he was gonna get, downgraded or, like, nerfed, whatever people call it. So it's just like, series do change, writers do realize their faults and mistakes, but just because you base your interpretation off of one season or anyone else's opinion doesn't mean that that's the whole show, or that a show can't grow over time.
Right, and, like, I'm not saying you need to watch 50 to 60 episodes of SAO to appreciate Kirito's character, but I feel like season 1 and 2 and the movie were just groundwork for developing Kirito as a character.
Right, without a doubt. And I definitely do. And I definitely will say, even if you have, like, slight knowledge of SEO, just watching this, I think will give people, or the audience, their own interpretation. Like, this is actually really good. Maybe I will watch the previous seasons knowing how it goes afterwards.
Right.
Like, it's not too hard to understand SAO, but I think, watching this will give you a tighter grasp of, like, like, maybe I will give it a shot watching the other seasons.
I know, I could talk about SEO for hours. I love it.
Alright, let's see how long we've gotten into this. We got 1 hour, and we got plenty of show notes to go through. So that was SEO, ordinal scale. Wow, way to go. Alicization. When it comes to this year, what would you put it, like, 3rd, 5th, 4th when it comes to SAO?
I don't want to be biased and say 1 just because it's my favorite series. I would probably put it at like 4 or 5, because we're still at the very early, like, slow stages of build-up. So it's not very, like, that interesting, but once it does pick up, it'll probably go higher on my list.
I see. For me,
but right now, I put it at 4.
I see. Also, there's nothing wrong with being biased. There's a lot of critics and writers that are biased. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I'd put this at number 3. It was very enjoyable. I love the ride and seeing the characters, and it's been a lot more fun than watching the fucking Darling and the Franxx, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, God.
What a fucking show. Can you believe that came out this year? Anyway. Anyway, the next show notes. I don't think I'll let Kay talk about this because I don't think she has too much to say, but the next series that we've been watching on this list is GOBLIN. Speaking of openings, I actually skipped out. What do you think the opening for Ordinal Scale before we move on? Alicization. I'm sorry. Alicization. There's so many series.
I love it. There's just something, I feel like they spoil too much. Maybe it's because I've read it, so I know exactly, like, every single thing that's happening in that opening. But, I mean, the music's good, the choreography's so good, the colors are, like, freaking beautiful.
Yeah, that guitar rock opening slaps, like.
And I feel like I really love this new director, because I've seen his storyboards for the opening, and they're so detailed.
Yeah,
it's like he really understands. I feel like he really understands this series a lot more than the previous director. I don't want to, like, talk too much about Alicization again, but like, Tomohiko Ito, he is the one who directed season 1, season 2, and the movie. He really likes fan service, and he really likes ass shots. So that's why we get so many scene on ass shots in season 2.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah, that was kind of in the movie as well.
And
Like,
here we are, like, what, 10 episodes in, and there hasn't been a single, like, fan service, really, like, harem tropey kind of scene, which I really appreciate. But yeah, the opening's really good. I love it. Lisa's back. When is she never back?
Right, I love that sick guitar opening, like that revs up during the start. I was like, oh shit, this kind of sound kind of hot. Like, wait a minute.
I feel like I like the ending a lot more though, just because it's more focused on like Yujio's struggles, trying to become stronger, and then finding his strength in Kirito and becoming bros.
I felt that the opening fit. It was either the second, third episode, one of those two. And then afterwards, I finally felt detached from the ending because I felt like that ending was set up really well for one of those episodes. It's like, oh, okay, like it's a somber, like nice, calm ending, but like it doesn't. I don't need an ending to get me pumped. Need an ending kind of put me to bed type of deal. But I kind of didn't like feel the same notion when it came to the ED.
Yeah, I feel like because a lot of people, it's hard to connect to Yujio and understand him because we haven't seen much of his development or his thought process because they skipped like a huge for his character in the very beginning to save time, and like a lot of his development doesn't happen until later, like episode 15 later.
I see.
So like the end focusing on him kind of makes no sense, and I can get what you mean. But like for me, because I love him and I love what happens later on in the story, so I'm just like, oh god, Yujio, I love you.
Yeah, no, Yujio. I think he's about to become my favorite. Weirdly enough to say, because Kirito, he's so cocky. Like later on, like Yujio's like, yo, chill out. Like,
yeah, he is really cocky. He's a cocky person, and it's like because he thinks everything is gonna turn out in his favor. That like I said, when he cut down the tree, he thought it would just work for him because everything so far has just worked for him, and now it doesn't, and he's like, oh shit.
Yeah, because where we are now, currently, Kirito's about to fight like one of the captains in like this tournament arena thing, and like Yujio's like, yo, can you like chill out, bro? Like he's like, chill the fuck out, Kirito. Like you were nowhere near these like captain's levels, and then like he just kind of like sighs. He's like, whatever, bro. Like I love that.
Like I could take him on, whatever. But that's fine. I could do it.
Like we're supposed to be a team, but you're soloing this. That's cool. Like I love that about Yujio. But,
how he keeps Kirito in check.
Right, yeah, I love those type of characters. Like they're not too full of themselves. Like they know what situations they're in. But the next anime on this list, and I'm going to mess this up.